If your coworker asks you to review a PR, and then you find out they didn't even test their changes, you're probably going to be a little upset. This is how it can feel working with coding agents.
Israel killed him, this is the key point, to prevent Donald Trump from finding an off-ramp and to harden the ruling hierarchy of Iran. That's why Israel did this, because Israel's greatest fear right now is that the U.S. ends this war.
Hey, we got special guest with us. Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone is here. Hey, Max, how are you, buddy?
And Jimmy?
I just wanted to have you on to talk to you about a few things. Well, last night, Iran's top national security official was killed by an Israeli strike. Iran on Tuesday confirmed that Ali Larijani, the head of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, why would they have an Italian guy as the head of, but anyway, he was killed by an overnight Israeli strike, the most significant Iranian leader to be assassinated since the Supreme Leader Ayatollah al-Khamenei was killed in the opening strikes of the war. Iran's Press TV reported that Larijani was killed alongside his son, Morteza Larijani, and the head of his office, Al-Reza Bayat, as well as several bodyguards. Earlier in the day, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said that Larijani and Gholam Reza Salami was the head of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps volunteer Basel Force were eliminated by overnight Israeli strikes. Iran has also confirmed that Soleimani was killed. The killing of two senior Iranian officials has not slowed Iran's military operations as drone and missile attacks continued across the region following the assassinations. Now, here's what Christiana M. reports. She says, a source familiar with private plans and discussions tells me that Ali Larijani was, for the U.S. and Israel, the most favored transitional candidate as of September 25th, but became a target early 2026. The source said Larijani became a target when he pushed for crackdown on protesters, took front seat in lashing out at U.S. and Israel, and assumed key role in strategizing the IRGC kinetic actions, in particular against the Gulf states. And you responded. Now tell me, you said those are just silly post hoc justifications for killing him. And tell me, what do you think the real reason why they killed him is?
First of all, he is the most senior official in Iran. He's running the whole government right now. He's running essentially their version of the National Security Council, their version, all of the intelligence branches, uniting figure who is well known and even respected by his opponents. His killing, I mean, if you see the outpouring of outrage and mourning for him today in Tehran, his killing in many ways was more significant than the killing of now Sayyid Ali Khamenei, the former Ayatollah. And that's because of the influence Larijani had and the force that he wielded politically and intellectually in representing. And why would Israel kill a figure like this? One, because he symbolizes, and Israel's goal is to destroy the Iranian state. This is about just destroying every aspect of the state and transforming it into Iraq post-U.S. invasion or Syria post-regime change. The U.S., I don't even know what the Trump objective is, but it might be a little different than that. It was supposed to be about denuclearization. But then there's a more important point to understand here that really speaks to the diabolic nature of Israel's campaign and its relationship with the U.S. and specifically Trump. While he wasn't someone who wanted to run sovereignty to the U.S., he provided a lot of support from within the Islamic Republic to the nuclear deal in the Obama administration. So to negotiating with the U.S. at that time, he was the key force in kind of uniting uniting the hierarchy of power around that deal. He's a deal maker. And he was a back channel in this war with the Gulf states in trying to find a way out of this war. He was the guy who was going to end this war, and he was the guy Trump was going to be able to talk to about ending the war. And he's a very he's well known to any Western journalist who's been covering Iran at a high level for the last few decades knows him. That this BBC presenter, John Simpson, came out and said, I really respected Larijani, and he was a very erudite man. Larijani was actually had a philosophy degree. He's, I think, a specialist in Immanuel Kant. And Simpson then had to delete that and say, oh no, Iran is bad, in order to keep his job. But he's someone, Westerners know, respect. People would meet with him outside the UN when he came to New York. He was the deal maker. Israel killed him, this is the key point, to prevent Donald Trump from finding an off-ramp. Harden the ruling hierarchy of Iran. That's why Israel did this, because Israel's greatest fear right now is that the US ends this war. This is Israel's war, and Israel wants this war to go on for a year. About the midterms for Trump, they don't care about destroying Trump. They already destroyed Kamala Harris and Joe Biden before that, although, of course, they played a role in destroying themselves, but they don't care. They care about destroying the Iranian state, turning Iran into another Syria with civil war, mass migration, the destruction of their oil fields. They bombed a gigantic gas field in Iran today that supplies gas domestically to the country, leading to massive retaliation all across the region by Iran, as Iran warned it would do, attacking Saudi oil infrastructure, attacking Qatari oil infrastructure, bringing the price of gas up for people around the world. Israel doesn't care about our economy. They don't care about the global economy. And so killing this singular figure was a bridge to escalation and keeping the U.S. in this war. And that's why what Christiane Amanpour, this regime change propagandist whose family was actually worked for the Shah, why what she's saying, I call it a silly post hoc justification, because for a reason why Israel killed Larijani.
We'll be right back with more of this story after a brief message from our sponsor. Gold, Metropolitan, more disruptisrael.com or 800-476-7790. As soon as I heard about this, I knew immediately this was Israel trying to make sure that there would not be an end to this war. Israel, I had gotten Professor Jane on the show last week, and he talked about how this is really the people pushing this war in Israel. They kind of want destruction. And they don't care that Tel Aviv gets wiped out. They want because Jerusalem, the people in Tel Aviv are more cosmopolitan, more moderate, and the people in Jerusalem are more hardcore. And they are willing to let 90% of the Earth's population die for some crazy religious theory. Are you informed on that, or will you have a comment on that?
I mean, just look at the way, go back to Ali Larijani's tweets in English, where he called this an Israel first war that was internationally illegal, and kept emphasizing that the American people are being misled or misrepresented by their own leadership, blinking Americans from this elite, what he would even call the Epstein class. This is the kind of rhetoric that infuriates Trump. And Larijani was going viral on Twitter X, but he was constantly emphasizing Iran's rights under international law. And he was a strong believer in the international system. And if you watch interviews with Iran's foreign secretary, Abbas Araghchi, or follow him on Twitter, he speaks fluent English. He's constantly speaking through the language of international law. These are the major representatives on the world stage. Ghalibaf, the head of Iran's parliament, he's another account you should follow. It's spelled Ghalibaf, tweeting in English, expressing the interests and the voice of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Just contrast the way they talk and the way that they frame everything through international law and Iran's rights as a nation to what we're hearing from Lindsey Graham or old school Marco Rubio in the Senate, people around Donald Trump. explicitly speaking in terms of religious warfare. And then, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu, who launched this war on the holiday of Purim after reading from the book of Esther, linking this war to a chapter in the Bible in which Persians were slaughtered as punishment for abusing the Jews. People around Benjamin Netanyahu, who are straight up religious fanatics, it's the assailants of Iran that are explicitly framing this as a religious war. Lindsey Graham, he even came out and he said that this is a religious war and we're determining the future of the Middle East for the next 1,000 years. The way Iran's leadership frames it. Iran is up against the most evil, malign forces in human history right now. And these are forces that may rule us, but which have no credibility among our own population. This is the least popular war at its inception, possibly American history. I mean, I didn't see any polling on the War of 1812, and I know there was there were draft riots during the Civil War, but this war is or in World War I don't know what the polling was there, but this war is, in our lifetimes, popular than I think the Vietnam War was at its inception. Americans aren't interested in this, but we're being led by religious fanatics who are laying hands on Donald Trump, praying over Donald Trump in the Oval Office so that he will destroy Gog and Magog. And this should be really a shocking moment, Americans, because we've been propagandized our whole lives to believe that Iran is the world's largest sponsor of terrorism and that Iran is the source of religious insanity. Look at what's happening in Iran. Right now, they are the world's largest victim of terrorism, seeing their oil fields bombed, the massive oil depot outside of Tehran bombed, and the whole city of 9 million people enshrouded in chemical flames and chemical gas. The next day, cars and buildings all over the city were covered in oil residue. It was one of the worst chemical attacks we've seen in recent history. How did the war begin? What was the opening shot of the war? It was a targeted strike by the US on a girls' school in Minab, killing 170 schoolgirls, a target that wound up on the US target bank because we're relying on Palantir's Maven targeting system and using Claude AI to determine targets. So this is the outcome of all of the technological innovations that the Pentagon is using, is 170 slaughtered schoolgirls by the figures of the Epstein class. And it's not something that most Americans support. I mean, I can't find any Americans who support this unless I go to the dregs, the dregs of MAGA bootlicker world.
I don't know if you saw, but there's all over Twitter today is CNN reporting that Trump has 100% backing from the MAGA base.
Yeah.
Now, I don't believe that for a second, because most of the public people who were the biggest MAGA voices, like Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, Megyn Kelly, all these people, they're Candace Owens, Owen Stroyer, even Alex Jones, they're all separating themselves and distancing themselves and condemning this war. And so when you get 100%, so that must just be people who still identify as MAGA, and most of those people who voted for him, I don't think still consider themselves MAGA. Would you agree with that? And that's why those polls come out like that.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Lee Wilson. I'm an international dance artist. I have so many projects coming out this year.
I never thought that I would ever have any contact with someone like Candace Owens in my life, or be invited on Alex Jones to say whatever I want. I never thought I'd hear Charlie Kirk say what he was saying at the end of his life, towards the end of his life, about Iran. You actually aren't allowed to retweet Charlie Kirk's commentary on Iran if you have anything to do with the Trump administration now. You'll be seen as a national security threat. So something's going on out there. But So, and these were the pioneering voices of MAGA when Trump first ran for election. But then again, you were one of the pioneering voices when Bernie ran for president back in 2016, and look at where you are now. It really shows how extensively Trump has been rolled by the deep state he once condemned. There is, however, a MAGA base. The MAGA base is thinner, more narrow, and more ideologically monolithic, more brain dead, more slavishly dedicated to Trump and cultish than it ever has been. But the people who have the wake throughout this period are in the political wilderness. Massey, he's become a target of Trump. Marjorie Taylor Greene, whoever expected her to become this kind of nationally uniting resistance figure who's more outspoken on Palestine than the Squad. War, certainly. She's more outspoken on the Iran war than AOC, who's only made one statement. But the danger of Trump is that he does still command a cult-like base. The majority of Americans, many people have left, who voted for Trump have gone, just kind of gone AWOL. Commands them, and yet Trump embodies the same exact politics that he came in denouncing in 2016, 2015, when he was humiliating Jeb Bush on the debate stage over the war on terror and the war in Iraq. Trump basically is Lindsey Graham with a cult following. And that makes him more dangerous than Jeb Bush if Jeb Bush had gotten the nomination and Jeb Bush had somehow been rammed through and installed as president, as George Bush was, his brother. George Bush was literally installed as president by the Supreme Court. Donald Trump had consent, mass support, and now he's taking the United States to war for Israel, and he still has this kind of cult base. What is it? It could be like 20% of the country. But it's enough to still make any successor of Trump a contender. It's enough to make every Republican in Congress afraid of Trump. It's not just the base, it's the billionaire class behind Trump. Almost all of them are pro-Israel billionaires, and they have Trump under their command. So whatever does, who goes against Trump earns their wrath. Look at who's donating to Ed Galrain, this nobody who's running against Thomas Massey. It's all Israel First billionaires who essentially are in U.S. politics to advance the agenda of Israel and Netanyahu. So Trump still, he shouldn't be underestimated, even though I believe that he's unraveling with this war. And I don't think he understands what's actually happening out there in the country. Or how people actually feel about it.
Hey, we'll be in San Antonio, Albuquerque, Houston, Dallas, Salt Lake City, Las Vegas, Burbank, California. That's on May 7th. That's a Saturday. Then we'll be in Tulsa and Oklahoma City, Spokane, Tacoma. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets. See you there.
Instagram now lets you send automated DMs to new followers. Now, most people are going to use this to just blast links to their products, but I'll be doing something much smarter. We send a genuine thank you message first. Then we ask which topics this person is most interested in. When someone picks one, they're going to get an automatic link to a reel about that specific topic. In that reel, it includes a call to action to comment. Once they comment, they're going to enter one of your other DM automations naturally. If you want to learn more about Follow to DM, just click the link below.
I like making my podcast. I don't like making short clips of my podcast. So the AI chooses the best clips.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is 7:50 right now. I'm about to upload this to X. Just got word 15 minutes ago that my lawyers and folks met with the U.S. trustee over our bankruptcy this morning, and they said they're shutting us down without a court order. This morning, the Connecticut Democrats with the Onion newspaper bought us. They asked, did they outbid? They said, what? Our system did not die in a boardroom. It did not die in a policy document or a diplomatic summit or a Federal Reserve press conference. It is dying in a waterway 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, enforced by Iranian missiles, accelerated by Chinese yuan, and finished off by a military response that is solving the wrong problem with the wrong tools at the wrong moment in history. And what is happening at the Strait of Hormuz right now is not a regional conflict that will resolve itself through naval pressure and targeted airstrikes. It is the live demolition of the financial architecture that has underwritten American global power for exactly 50 years. And the mechanism doing the demolishing is not a weapon. It is a currency. I'm Elif House on YouTube. I have a PhD in computer science. And I use data analysis and pattern recognition to identify structural shifts in geopolitics and economics before they become undeniable to the people who spent years calling them impossible. What I am going to walk you through today is the precise mechanical sequence by which Iran has turned the world's most critical oil choke point into a UN enforcement zone, why Trump's military response is accelerating the very collapse it was designed to prevent, and what the end state of this process looks like when you follow the numbers rather than the headlines. Because when you see the full architecture of what is being dismantled in real time, the conclusion is not just alarming, it is inevitable. Let me start with the architecture you need to understand before any of the current events make sense at the level they actually operate on. In 1974, Henry Kissinger flew to Riyadh and made a deal with Saudi King Faisal that changed the structure of the entire global economy without most people ever knowing it happened or understanding what it meant for the next 5 decades. The agreement was straightforward in its mechanics and extraordinary in its long-term consequences for every country on earth. Saudi Arabia would denominate all of its oil sales exclusively in US dollars going forward, with no exceptions. Saudi oil revenues, which were enormous following the 1973 oil embargo and price shock that had rattled every major economy simultaneously, would be recycled directly into US Treasury bonds, giving Washington a reliable and enormously large buyer for its government debt at every quarterly auction, regardless of what American fiscal policy looked like internally. In exchange, the United States would provide Saudi Arabia and the broader Gulf states with military protection, advanced weapon systems, and comprehensive security guarantees against regional threats, including Iran after the 1979 revolution, transformed Tehran from an American client state into an active ideological adversary. That arrangement, the petrodollar system, accomplished something no other financial mechanism in recorded history had achieved at comparable scale across a sustained period. It created structural global demand for US dollars that was completely and permanently independent of American economic performance at any given moment in the business cycle. Countries needed dollars, not because the American economy was the most productive or most competently managed at every point in time, but because the entire global oil trade was denominated in dollars, and oil was not optional for any functioning modern economy on Earth. You needed dollars to buy it. Because of your support, we are here today. It is because of your support that we keep creating this content. Whether your support comes in the form of inbox DMs, comments, or specifically through the premium subscriptions, it takes our work a long way forward. We don't have support from any platform. Our channel get demonetized not once, but twice, because they don't want we provide the insider news. Demonetization or silencing someone's voice is very wrong, regardless of the issue they are speaking on. We stand with freedom of speech. Please join us with that our membership subscription. We have already started producing more content for our paid subscribers, and eventually our goal is for half of our content to be for paid subscribers only. So become a part of the family, join and subscribe. Oil. To accumulate dollars, you had to earn them through dollar-denominated exports, borrow them through dollar-denominated debt markets, or hold dollar-denominated assets generating dollar returns. That self-reinforcing cycle is what economists mean when they use the phrase dollar reserve currency status, an American exorbitant privilege in the same breath. It is the structural ability to print the world's essential transaction currency, run persistent trade deficits without suffering the currency depreciation that would immediately punish any other nation for identical fiscal behavior, and effectively export the inflation that money printing generates to the rest of the world through the dollar's mandatory role in global energy commerce. For 50 consecutive years, that privilege financed American military supremacy, American deficit spending, American technology dominance, and the American standard of living at a level that the underlying productive economy alone could not have sustained without the petrodollar subsidy built invisibly into every international transaction denominated in dollars globally. For 50 years, that system held because the physical infrastructure of global oil trade reinforced it automatically and continuously without requiring active management at every pressure point.
Oil flowed through choke points controlled by American naval power or protected by American military. Guarantees that were credible because they had been demonstrated repeatedly in real conflicts. The Strait of Hormuz was the crown jewel of that physical infrastructure, the single geographic point through which the system's architectural vulnerability was most dangerously concentrated, and through which American naval deterrence was most visibly and continuously expressed to every potential challenger. Approximately 17 million barrels of crude oil and petroleum products every single day pass through a channel 21 miles wide at its narrowest navigable point. Iran can observe that channel from its own coastal installations without sophisticated surveillance equipment. The consistent presence of United States carrier strike groups in the Gulf for 5 decades made Iranian capability to physically close or selectively control that channel strategically irrelevant through pure deterrence logic. American carriers and their full air wings in the Gulf meant Iranian missiles stayed on their launchers because the cost of using them against American assets was existential for the Iranian government. Gulf oil kept flowing in dollars. Dollar-denominated oil revenues from every Gulf state kept recycling reliably into treasury bonds at every auction. American borrowing costs stayed artificially suppressed well below what market conditions without petrodollar structural demand would have produced. The system perpetuated itself through the self-reinforcing logic of its own incentive structure without requiring costly active management at every point simultaneously. What has changed fundamentally and permanently is not Iranian military capability, which has been building steadily and purposefully for 4 full decades with direct Chinese and Russian technical assistance specifically designed for this type of asymmetric maritime denial scenario. What changed is that Iran now has a fully functioning alternative payment infrastructure to offer as a concrete positive incentive for compliant behavior, combined with an active missile battery network and deployed minefield to apply as direct enforcement against non-compliant dollar-denominated cargo attempting the same transit. Those two elements together.
Here's how I built an AI web app in 1 hour without writing a single line of code myself. By the way, this is coming from someone who won Google's Gemini hackathon and was also winner of the largest hackathon in Singapore. Here's my exact 4-step process that you can copy. First is the text.
A genuine carrot of safe and properly insured WAN-based passage and the operational stick of active military targeting for dollar-denominated cargoes using the same waterway create a mechanism for a forced currency transition at scale that bypasses every diplomatic instrument and every Treasury Department financial tool the United States currently has available in its response toolkit. Iran does not need to defeat the United States Navy in a direct fleet engagement to achieve its strategic objective at Hormuz. Iran only needs to maintain the condition where dollar-denominated oil cargoes are economically irrational and commercially uninsurable compared to yuan-denominated alternatives moving through the identical waterway without incident or premium. Based on the full operational data emerging from the Strait over the past several weeks, Iran is already achieving that precise objective with a level of strategic discipline that should deeply concern every analyst who understands what the petrodollar's structural role actually means for American power projection and deficit financing capacity going forward. Here is what is actually happening operationally at the Strait, because the precise mechanics are what most media coverage either fundamentally misunderstands or deliberately simplifies into near uselessness for people trying to make real decisions. Since the conflict reached its current operational intensity, Iran has established a de facto 2-tier transit system at the Strait of Hormuz that functions as a currency enforcement mechanism operating under the cover of a military conflict. Chinese state tankers operating under COSCO logistics management and Chinese state insurance arrangements that run entirely outside Western insurance market infrastructure are moving through the Strait without any harassment, inspection, or delay. Iranian tankers loading crude at Keshem Island and Karg Island terminal facilities are continuing normal loading and transit operations at full commercial pace. Every single barrel of that oil is being paid for in Chinese yuan through clearing mechanisms that operate completely outside the SWIFT dollar-denominated international banking infrastructure that Washington can monitor, freeze, or sanction at any point. Not one US dollar is changing hands in any of those transactions at any stage of the payment chain, from cargo loading through final settlement. Meanwhile, tankers carrying dollar-denominated cargo under standard Western insurance coverage, with contracts settled in dollars through normal international banking channels, are encountering a categorically and dangerously different operational reality that makes those voyages commercially irrational for any operator with alternatives. Lloyd's of London and the broader maritime war risk insurance syndicate have withdrawn standard coverage for the Persian Gulf region entirely, citing active military conflict conditions that exceed normal war risk underwriting parameters by a margin that makes standard policy issuance actuarially impossible under current loss probability models. War risk premiums for vessels attempting dollar-denominated cargo transit have climbed to between 0.8 and 1.2% of hull value per single voyage. On a very large crude carrier with a hull value of $120 million, the premium represents between $960,000 and $1.44 million in additional insurance cost for a single one-way passage through the strait. Add crew hazard pay that qualified maritime officers are demanding at 3 times standard rates before accepting Gulf assignments at current threat levels, elevated fuel costs from longer alternative routing, and the mounting administrative burden of finding operators willing to accept high-profile mortality risk as a routine operational variable, and the total economic case for dollar-denominated cargo transit has collapsed completely for standard commercial shipping operators working on normal industry margins in a competitive freight market. The UK Maritime Trade Organization has confirmed at least 16 vessels struck since the conflict escalated to its current sustained intensity, with 18 seafarers killed in those incidents across various nationality flags. Maersk, CMA CGM, Hapag-Lloyd, and every major Western commercial shipping operator has suspended Persian Gulf operations entirely until further notice, with no committed resumption timeline. The operational result is precisely the two-tier market structure that Iran designed and deliberately constructed over years of strategic preparation. UN-denominated oil moves freely and profitably through a strait managing 20% of the world's daily oil supply, while dollar-denominated oil requires active U.S. Navy escort arrangements that the United States has publicly admitted will not be operationally ready until late March at the earliest, commercially prohibitive insurance premiums that make the voyage economically destructive at current freight rates, and crews willing to accept active combat zone mortality. Probability is a routine professional variable. The commodity market is responding to these combined incentives in the only rational way available to commercial operators. That market response is accelerating yuan adoption at a pace that 10 years of patient Chinese financial diplomacy, working through belt and road infrastructure investments, could not have achieved across the same timeframe. Now let me explain with precision why Trump's military response is not resolving this underlying dynamic and is in several measurable and documented ways making the financial transition significantly more rapid and structurally irreversible rather than slowing it. The United States has deployed the USS Carl Vinson Carrier Strike Group, the USS Bataan Amphibious Ready Group, the USS AAA carrying 2,500 Marines from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, and additional destroyer escorts pulled from Pacific Command rotation schedules that were already managing South China Sea presence requirements under significant resource constraints simultaneously. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has approved the largest American regional military deployment since the 2003 Iraq invasion by troop count and asset concentration. The operational plan, which Energy Secretary Chris Wright publicly acknowledged will not be fully executable until late March at the earliest, due to the operational requirement to first suppress Iranian land-based anti-ship missile batteries across multiple coastal and island installations before attempting systematic commercial shipping escort operations, requires a sequential military campaign of weeks to months before achieving its core stated objective. That public sequencing acknowledgement is itself a historically significant strategic confession that cannot be walked back. The United States government has admitted on the public record that it cannot currently protect commercial shipping through the world's most critical oil choke point without first completing a major regional military operation of uncertain duration and scope. That single admission, regardless of whatever tactical military successes follow it, has permanently and publicly damaged the credibility of the security guarantee that formed the operational foundation of the petrodollar arrangement since Kissinger's Riyadh Agreement in 1974. The credibility of this foundational institutional type, once publicly contradicted by operational reality on a globally observed stage in front of every sovereign wealth fund manager and national oil company executive who needs to make hedging decisions, does not return when the military situation eventually improves. It is permanently spent. The market has already priced that expenditure into its forward planning. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent confirmed publicly that the economic disruption has already cost the U.S. economy an estimated $11 billion in measurable impact, a figure calculated before the current week's further escalation and growing substantially with each passing day of sustained disruption. The International Energy Agency has authorized the largest emergency strategic petroleum reserve release in the organization's entire operational history, 400 million barrels drawn from member state reserves across North America, Europe, and the Asia Pacific simultaneously, specifically designed to buffer global oil markets against the price shock of sustained Hormuz flow disruption. That intervention is extraordinary and historically unprecedented in its scale. It is also structurally finite in its duration and effect. Strategic reserve releases by weeks of managed price stability and political breathing room for governments facing fuel cost electoral pressure. They do not and structurally cannot address the fundamental question that actually determines the petrodollar's long-term fate, which is what currency global oil trade is systematically denominated in when the strait eventually returns to something resembling normal commercial traffic flow. The currency denomination question is being answered right now through thousands of individual commercial decisions made daily by oil traders, shipping companies, sovereign buyers, and national oil company procurement desks who are not making ideological statements about dollar dominance or reserve currency theory. They are responding rationally and with complete commercial logic to the cost differential between dollar-denominated transit risk and yuan-denominated transit reliability that Iran has installed as a structural and enduring feature of the world's most critical energy waterway. Here is the precise financial mathematics, because this is where the majority of analysis fails. The people trying to understand what this moment actually means for American power over the coming decade, rather than just the next quarterly earnings cycle. The Strait of Hormuz, in normal pre-conflict operations, handles approximately 17 million barrels of crude and refined petroleum products per day across all users and all flag states. The current spot price is near $94 per barrel. That represents roughly $1.6 billion of energy commodity value, transiting that single 21-mile geographic constraint every 24 hours without pause across a full calendar year that accumulates to approximately $584 billion of oil trade value moving through a waterway that Iran controls the operational risk environment of completely from its own sovereign territory. Currently, approximately 78% of all global oil transactions are denominated in US dollars, itself already a significant decline from 85% in 2015 and 80% as recently as 2022, demonstrating a trend moving consistently in one direction before this crisis added its powerful acceleration effect. If Iran successfully maintains yuan-only payment enforcement for the oil flowing to China and aligned purchasing nations through the strait, which based on current Chinese import volume tracking and Iranian export monitoring, represents between 8 and 11 million barrels per day already transiting under yuan-denominated contractual terms, you are looking at a permanent baseline conversion of that entire daily volume from dollar denomination to yuan. Denomination is the minimum outcome, even under a relatively rapid conflict resolution scenario. At $94 per barrel, converting 8 to 11 million barrels per day from dollar to yuan denomination represents between 750 million and $1 billion per day in oil transaction value being structurally and permanently removed from the dollar denominated global trading system's daily flow. Annualized across a full year, the calculation produces between $270 billion and $365 billion in annual oil trade that no longer generates structural dollar demand, no longer requires dollar reserves to be accumulated and maintained by sovereign wealth funds and central banks making portfolio allocation decisions. It no longer creates the treasury bond recycling flow that has kept American borrowing costs suppressed below genuine market clearing rates for 50 consecutive years. Gulf state sovereign wealth funds and central banks collectively hold approximately $2.4 trillion in United States Treasury securities at current market valuations. The combined position exists structurally because those sovereign entities earn dollars from oil sales at massive scale and require large, liquid, sovereign-grade assets denominated in the currency they continuously accumulate through their primary revenue source. Saudi Arabia alone maintains over $135 billion in direct treasury holdings, with Kuwait, UAE, and Qatar adding several hundred billion more across their respective sovereign investment vehicles. If oil revenues progressively shift toward yuan denomination through the market adaptation mechanism Iran is deploying at Hormuz, the structural portfolio logic for maintaining dollar-denominated treasury positions rather than yuan-denominated Chinese government bonds shifts proportionally and automatically with the revenue currency composition. American 10-year treasury yields face sustained upward pressure from reduced structural buyer demand that no Federal Reserve operation can fully offset. American mortgage rates and corporate borrowing costs rise with sovereign yields. Federal deficit financing costs increase at a moment when American fiscal deficits are already at historically elevated peacetime levels. The political choices required to manage that adjustment across the 5 to 10-year horizon are all sufficiently painful that no administration confronting them transparently survives the subsequent electoral cycle without severe domestic political damage that feeds back into policy instability, further undermining dollar confidence in a self-reinforcing negative cycle. Saudi Arabia's specific current positioning in the emerging UN payment architecture deserves focused attention because Riyadh is the single variable that determines whether the petrodollar transition becomes a managed multi-decade gradual adjustment with controlled American fiscal pain or an acute compression crisis contained within 3 to 5 years. Saudi Arabia has formally joined China's mBridge multi-central bank digital currency platform, a distributed ledger settlement infrastructure, allowing instant cross-border transactions denominated in participating sovereign currencies without touching the SWIFT dollar clearing system at any transaction stage. Riyadh has established a direct yuan-rial bilateral currency swap line worth $7 billion with the People's Bank of China, creating a standing liquidity facility for yuan-denominated oil settlement at commercial scale. They have opened active yuan vaults on the Shanghai Gold Exchange International, creating an operational and liquid mechanism for converting excess yuan revenues from Chinese oil sales directly into physical gold, settled entirely within Chinese financial custody infrastructure rather than London or New York vaulting arrangements. That specific conversion mechanism mirrors architecturally the precise function the petrodollar treasury recycling mechanism performs for the dollar system. It is the store of value component without which a payment, currency transition remains incomplete and reversible. Saudi Arabia has constructed a complete and operational parallel infrastructure for yuan-denominated oil trade that is liquid, scalable, and deployable at full commercial volume. The Hormuz crisis is measurably accelerating Riyadh's internal policy calculus movement from theoretical optionality toward active operational deployment of that infrastructure at progressively larger transaction volumes. Russia's post-2022 operational experience provides the essential large-scale proof of concept demonstrating that the yuan oil trade model functions at genuine commercial scale under maximum Western financial pressure conditions. Following comprehensive sanctions, excluding Russia from SWIFT and freezing hundreds of billions in sovereign central bank reserves, Russia successfully transitioned its oil export revenue flows to yuan, rubles, rupees, and bilateral settlement arrangements with willing sovereign buyers across Asia and the Middle East. Russian crude exports to China, India, and Turkey have continued at volumes largely offsetting European market losses across 3 full years of sanctions pressure, processed through clearing mechanisms operating entirely outside the dollar system at every transaction stage. The discount Russia accepts on non-dollar sales compared to Brent reference pricing has progressively narrowed as the alternative infrastructure matured in operational reliability and counterparty depth. The broader institutional scaffolding reinforces this further and gives the alternative system its genuine depth. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, now including Iran, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Pakistan alongside Russia, China, and India, processed $287 billion in bilateral trade last year, denominated in non-dollar currencies across member state transactions. The BRICS payment system operational since late 2024 has already settled $43 billion in cross-border transactions outside the dollar clearing architecture. When Iran enforces yuan payments at Hormuz at the point of deployed missile systems, it is not directing oil buyers toward an untested experimental financial arrangement requiring a leap of institutional faith. It is directing them toward infrastructure, already processing hundreds of billions in annual real commercial transaction volume, with demonstrated operational reliability across
This is the
multiple
worst
sovereign
thing
counterparties
right here, man.
and asset classes. What
The
you are
loss of the
watching
dollar.
at the Strait of Hormuz right now is not a military conflict that happens to carry financial implications as a secondary analytical consideration. It is a financial conflict being executed through precisely chosen military instruments that exploit the specific architectural vulnerability of a payment system built on a single geographic choke point rather than the conventional military vulnerability of an adversary's armed forces in open terrain. Iran does not need to defeat the United States Navy in a conventional fleet engagement to achieve its core strategic objective. Iran needs only to maintain the cost differential between dollar-denominated transit risk and yuan. Denominated transit reliability at a level that makes commercial market adaptation to yuan trade rational, self-reinforcing across participant decisions, and ultimately irreversible before American military force can suppress the enforcement mechanism creating it. By every quantitative metric currently available and measurable, that threshold has already been crossed permanently, and the market adaptations are already accumulating self-reinforcing momentum that military success alone cannot reverse. The maritime insurance markets have priced the new operational reality into their underwriting models in ways that will not automatically reset when combat operations reduce. The major Western commercial shipping operators have restructured their route planning and fleet deployment around the new persistent cost reality. The yuan-denominated transit flow is already operating at 8 to 11 million barrels per day, through the two-tier mechanism Iran has operationally, installed at the world's most critical energy choke point as a permanent structural feature. The petrodollar is not dying because Iran is conventionally militarily superior to the United States in any standard force-on-force comparison. It is dying because Iran has identified with surgical strategic precision the single most leveraged architectural vulnerability point in a 50-year financial system, and is applying exactly sufficient pressure at exactly that specific point to force irreversible commercial market adaptation faster than any military response timeline can realistically reverse it. Trump's war at Hormuz is not stopping the collapse of the dollar system that underwrote 50 years of American global primacy. It is the most powerful accelerant currently being applied to that collapse by demonstrating publicly and permanently that the military guarantee, which was always the petrodollar's actual enforcement mechanism, can no longer be credibly extended to the physical infrastructure on which the entire system was architecturally constructed. The financial architecture is not being defeated on a battlefield in any conventional sense. It is being outmaneuvered at the precise intersection point where military deterrence ends and commercial market adaptation begins. For the latest on how this connects to the $2 trillion exit from American financial markets that preceded this conflict and systematically prepared the ground for exactly this moment of maximum leverage, check out the video on your screen right now. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.
So you've made some music, and now it's time to let the world hear it. My name's Alfie Neal, and I'm a singer, producer, and CEO.
Imagine you are the CEO of the largest oil shipping company on the planet. It is the morning of March 2nd, 2026. You have 6 super tankers loaded with crude oil sitting at the edge of the Strait of Hormuz, 2 million barrels each, and every single one of them is going nowhere. Not because an Iranian warship is blocking them, not because a naval mine is in the water, not because a single Iranian missile has been fired at your fleet this morning. Your ships are paralyzed because a fax machine in London printed a single page from an insurance company, and that page said 3 words that ended global trade as we know it: war risk withdrawn. That piece of paper, that quiet bureaucratic document from a London insurance office, did what 50 years of military threats could not. It stopped the world's oil supply dead in its tracks. And while the entire planet was watching missiles and airstrikes and political speeches, Iran was doing something far more calculated, far more dangerous, and far more permanent than anything a bomb could accomplish. It was shipping 11.7 million barrels of crude oil directly to China, settling every single transaction outside the US dollar. And in doing so, it was testing a financial weapon that could ultimately do more damage to American power.
I didn't think about this conflict actually accelerating the collapse of the petrodollar because I'm not good at geography and not understanding the significance of the Strait of Hormuz. This is like a global choke point for oil. It's like so much oil moves through there. Whoever controls that is like really in charge. And now that the world sees that America really doesn't have like a very strong control over that, and we're getting bullied around a little bit, people are starting to think about investments and economy above this religious war and what is the best route for a nation to keep their economy flowing and their people happy. We got to make new business deals so we can avoid all these fucking war conflicts. America's always at war. America's always warring with somebody. Maybe we should not fuck with America because every time America gets in a scuffle with somebody, our economies get fucked up because we depend on their dollar for the oil. You know what? We should just do something other than the... Oh, here we go again. America's got the fucking Iranians all hyped up. Now, you know what? China and Iran with the yuan, I think that sounds like a better deal. Because these motherfucking insurance companies are not giving me insurance coverage for going through these war zones because America's a fucking dickhead. I got to use something else. I got to use a different insurance to make sure that my product gets to my suppliers.
Any missile ever launched. But here's the part that nobody is talking about. China did not panic. China did not scramble. China had been preparing for exactly this moment for years.
Mhm.
And when the Strait of Hormuz finally shut down for the rest of the world, for Iran and China, it opened up. Stay with me, because what happened in that strait over the last 3 weeks is not just a war story. It is the story of how the financial architecture that has governed the entire world since 1974 began to crack. And how a country under military attack figured out how to turn a choke point into a currency revolution. We are going to break all of it down, step by step. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand why the most consequential sentence spoken in this entire conflict was not a threat from a general or a statement from a president. It was a single condition whispered by a senior Iranian official to a CNN reporter. If you want to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, price your cargo in Chinese yuan. To understand the scale of what just happened, you need to understand what the Strait of Hormuz actually is. It is a waterway between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, roughly 167 kilometers long, narrowing at points to just 39 kilometers wide. On its northern shore lies Iran. On its southern shore lies the Musandam Peninsula, shared by the UAE and Oman. At its narrowest usable navigation corridor, ships move through 2 lanes, each just 3 kilometers wide in opposite directions. That is it. That is the bottleneck through which 1/5 of the world's oil supply flows every single day. Roughly 1/3 of all seaborne crude oil trade transits this waterway. 19% of global liquefied natural gas flows through it. 14% of the world's refined petroleum products pass through it. Before 2026, around 1,200 ships per month made that passage. Saudi oil, Emirati oil, Kuwaiti oil, Qatari gas, all of it passes through a lane you could nearly swim across. For decades, the United States Navy Fifth Fleet, based in Bahrain, was the invisible guarantee that this lane would remain open. The petrodollar system, born from the Nixon shock of 1971 and formalized in the agreements of 1974, rested on a simple promise. America would keep the sea lane open, and in return, the Gulf would price its oil in dollars. That promise had held for over 50 years. On February 28, 2026, it was put to its most severe test in history. The conflict began when the United States and Israel launched coordinated strikes on Iran under an operation that targeted military facilities,
I was trying to hold it,
sites,
but
and the Iranian leadership itself.
I gotta go.
The supreme leader was killed. Iran's military command structure was immediately thrown into chaos. Every television studio on the planet expected one response and one response only. Iran would attempt to close the Strait of Hormuz by force. It would send gunboats, it would lay mines, it would position its anti-ship missiles along the northern coastline, and the US Navy would respond, and the world would hold its breath waiting to see who blinked first. That is what every analyst predicted. That is what the financial markets priced in. That is what the Pentagon wargamed. And that is exactly what Iran chose not to do. Because Iran had already figured out something that its enemies had not. It did not need to physically close the strait to close the strait. It only needed to make the strait feel closed. And the tool it used to do that was not military at all. It was actuarial. Here's how the insurance weapon works. And pay close attention, because this is the mechanism that the mainstream media almost completely missed. Every commercial ship that transits a high-risk waterway carries what is called war risk insurance. This is a supplemental insurance policy that covers the ship, its cargo, and its crew in the event of conflict-related damage. Without war risk insurance, no commercial shipping company in the world will send its vessels into a contested zone. The liability is simply too catastrophic. Before the conflict began, war risk insurance premiums for Hormuz transits had already been climbing. They went from roughly 0.125% of the ship's insured value per transit to between 0.2 and 0.4%. For a very large crude carrier, a ship capable of carrying 2 million barrels of oil, that premium increase alone added $250,000 to a single voyage. And that was before the shooting started. On March 5th, 2026, the International Group of Protection and Indemnity Clubs, the 12 organizations that provide marine liability cover for 90% of the world's ocean-going tonnage, withdrew their coverage entirely for ships operating in the Strait of Hormuz region. Norway's Guard walked away, Britain's North Standard walked away, the American Club in New York walked away, the London P&I Club walked away. Every major underwriter on the planet looked at the data, looked at the attack patterns, looked at the 16 vessels that had already been struck by drones and missiles in the first 2 weeks of the conflict, and made a business decision. The risk could not be priced. The market had withdrawn, and the moment that decision was made, the Strait of Hormuz closed. Not because of a naval blockade, not because of a minefield, because of a fax from London. The benchmark freight rate for very large crude carriers
We're back.
hit an all-time record high of $423,736 per day. That was a 94% increase in a single
I'm
weekend.
gonna try to finish that.
Shipping giants Maersk
video,
and
that
Hapag-Lloyd
clip
immediately
video
suspended
tonight.
cargo acceptance.
And I'll probably
in and
put
out
that
of the
song
UAE.
out as a
The
single.
Strait went from 1,200 ship
Just go ahead
transits
and
per
get it
month
out there.
to effectively zero for Western commercial operators within days. According to Lloyd's List Intelligence, in the first half of March 2026, only 77 ships transited the Strait of Hormuz. In the same period 1 year earlier, 1,229 ships had made the passage. That is a 94% collapse in traffic. Over 1,000 vessels sat anchored outside the strait, waiting, not for a ceasefire, not for a peace agreement, waiting for an insurance company to change its mind. Iran had spent almost nothing to make this happen. The genius of the strategy was that once the insurance market withdrew, the U.S. Navy could not simply escort every tanker through the strait. Think about that for a moment. There are over 1,000 ships waiting. The U.S. Navy does not have 1,000 warships. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent floated the idea of naval escorts, and the market's response was silence. Because even with an escort, if your ship gets hit, you are not insured. No sensible shipping CEO authorizes that voyage. The economic risk is too catastrophic. While Washington was debating military solutions to a financial problem, Tehran had already moved to the next phase of its strategy. Here is where the story takes a turn that you will not see covered on most financial channels. And this is the part of this video that you need to share, because what Iran did next was not retaliatory. It was architectural. While every Western oil tanker was paralyzed at anchor, Iranian vessels kept moving. 3 of the 6 tankers captured on satellite imagery departing Iran after February 28th were Iranian flagged. Chinese flagged vessels began broadcasting their ownership status and were allowed to pass. On March 4th, reports emerged that Iran would allow only Chinese vessels to transit the strait, citing China's supportive stance. On March 5th, a bulk carrier operated by Cetus Maritime Shanghai transited the strait while broadcasting its Chinese ownership. On March 7th, another Chinese-owned vessel collected cargo from the UAE's Mina Saka port and sailed through. Iran was operating a selective choke point. It had not closed the Strait of Hormuz. It had nationalized it by currency. If you are Chinese, you pass. If your cargo is priced in yuan, you may pass. If you are American, Israeli, or Western ally, you anchor and wait. And while that selective passage was operating, tankertrackers.com, which monitors vessel movements with satellite imagery and can detect ships that have switched off their tracking systems, confirmed that 11.7 million barrels of Iranian crude oil had moved from Iranian ports to Chinese refineries since February 28th. Every single barrel settled outside the US dollar system. Not through normal international shipping channels, not through Western insured tankers, but through a shadow fleet of vessels operating in the new geography of sanctions, war, and financial realignment that Iran and China had been quietly building for years. Now let us talk about what 11.7 million barrels actually means in human terms, because this number deserves context. 11.7 million barrels is enough oil to power France for over a month. It is enough to run Germany's entire industrial base for 3 weeks. It is enough to fuel the United States military for approximately 45 days. And every single dollar of that transaction, every single payment that cleared outside the SWIFT system, outside the dollar clearing network, outside the financial architecture that Washington has used as a geopolitical lever for 5 decades. Before the conflict, Iran was exporting 2.16 million barrels per day in February 2026, the highest level since July 2018. All of it was going to China. China had been amassing reserves for months, anticipating exactly this kind of supply disruption. Beijing was not caught off guard. The IEA announced an emergency release of 400 million barrels from strategic reserves, but at global daily consumption of over 105 million barrels, that stockpile covers barely 4 days of normal demand and perhaps 20 days of typical Hormuz flows. The release was a political signal, not a solution, and the market knew it. Brent crude surged from around $65 a barrel before the conflict began to above $100 within days of the closure, peaking above $126 at one point, the highest level in 4 years and the largest energy disruption since the 1970s oil crisis. But here's where the story shifts from energy economics to something even larger, something that threatens the foundational architecture of American financial power in a way that no missile can touch. Understand what the petrodollar system actually does for the United States. When Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, and other Gulf states price their oil in dollars, every country on earth that needs to buy oil needs to first acquire dollars. That means global demand for the dollar remains perpetually elevated regardless of what the American economy does domestically. It means the United States can run enormous budget deficits without the same inflationary consequences that would cripple any other country. It means the Federal Reserve's interest rate decisions ripple through every economy on the planet because every economy on the planet holds dollars to buy oil. This is not just a trading convention. It is the infrastructure of American global power. And the system does not just run on currency agreements. It runs on one additional assumption that is so fundamental, it is almost never stated explicitly. It runs on the assumption that the United States Navy can guarantee safe passage for dollar-denominated oil shipments anywhere on Earth. Before February 28, 2026, that guarantee was backed by the Fifth Fleet in Bahrain, by aircraft carrier strike groups, by decades of American military dominance in the Persian Gulf. Now, for the first time in the history of the petrodollar system, that guarantee has been openly, publicly, and empirically tested, and it has been found incomplete. A senior Iranian official, speaking to CNN, offered the most financially significant sentence spoken during this entire conflict. Tehran is considering allowing a limited number of oil tankers to pass through the Strait of Hormuz on the condition that their cargo is priced in Chinese yuan. Think about what that condition actually means in practice. If a Japanese shipping company, a South Korean refinery buyer, an Indian petrochemical firm wants to move oil through Hormuz, it would need to price that cargo in yuan, not dollars. It would need to operate through China's CIPS payment system, not SWIFT. It would need, for that transaction at least, to exit the dollar system entirely. The new supreme leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, who succeeded his father after the US-Israeli strikes, has pledged to maintain the strait closure as long as the war continues, while noting, and this is the key phrase, that the matter may change according to interests. Iran is not ideologically committed to keeping the strait closed. It is strategically committed to extracting maximum diplomatic and financial leverage from its geographic position before any reopening. And the leverage it is extracting has a very specific target, not American warships, American financial architecture. And the extraordinary thing is that China has been cautious in response. Analysts in Beijing, speaking to the South China Morning Post, warned that operationalizing a yuan for Hormuz trade arrangement would face serious feasibility challenges in wartime conditions. GPS interference, insurance gaps, sailor safety risks. They noted it could strain China-US ties. But caution in Beijing does not mean rejection. It means calculation. And China is very good at calculation. Before the conflict began, China was receiving approximately 5.35 million barrels of oil per day through the Strait of Hormuz. That figure has collapsed to roughly 1.22 million barrels per day since the closure, coming almost entirely from Iran. Chinese flagged vessels are getting through. Iranian tankers running dark, with their AIS transponders switched off to evade detection, are moving crude from Karg Island to Chinese refineries in a rhythm that has barely slowed. Maritime intelligence firm Windward identified 6 Iranian very large crude carriers operating with transponders, off or broadcasting deceptive locations at Karg Island alone. Iran had been preparing for exactly this scenario. In the 15 to 20 days before the US-Israeli strikes began, Iran deliberately increased its oil exports to 3 times normal levels, reducing storage at Karg Island and getting as much oil to sea as possible. Vortexa, the energy data firm, estimated that roughly 170 million barrels of Iranian oil were already at sea in January 2026, looking for buyers. Iran essentially front-loaded its entire oil revenue stream before the war began. It pre-positioned its financial lifeline so that even under direct military attack, even with its supreme leader killed and its leadership under assault, its oil revenue to China would keep flowing. That level of economic preparation is not improvisation. It is strategic foresight executed over months. Now let us look at what this has done to the countries that thought they were watching from the sidelines, because no one in the Gulf got to stay neutral in this conflict. Iran may have framed its strait policy as closed only to enemies, but the economic shockwaves did not discriminate. Qatar, one of the world's largest producers of liquefied natural gas, was supplying Europe, Pakistan, India, and dozens of other economies. Iranian drone strikes on its facilities at Ras Laffan and Messaid Industrial City forced a production halt. Qatar and the UAE together account for 99% of Pakistan's LNG imports and 53% of India's. When those facilities went offline, the downstream consequences moved faster than any military response could. Fertilizer prices at New Orleans hubs surged from $475 to $680 per metric ton almost overnight. 1/3 of all global fertilizer trade transits the Strait of Hormuz. 85% of polyethylene exports from the Middle East move through this waterway. Polyethylene is not a commodity that most people think about, but it is in the packaging of everything you buy at a grocery store, in the components of every car you drive, in the manufacturing chain of almost every consumer good on the market. When Hormuz closes, the price of plastic goes up, the price of food packaging goes up, the price of industrial inputs goes up, and all of that arrives at the American consumer's doorstep 3 to 6 months after the event, long after the news cycle has moved on, as a wave of inflation that feels disconnected from its cause. What Iran also demonstrated in this conflict is something that fundamentally changes the calculus of American military power projection. The old deterrence model assumed that the threat of overwhelming U.S. military force would prevent any regional power from disrupting global energy flows. Iran studied that model, absorbed it, and found its single fatal flaw. Deterrence works when the threatened party is afraid of what you will do, but if the threatened party has already absorbed the worst you can do and has structured its economy, its oil revenues, and its shadow fleet to survive and continue operating, after those strikes, deterrence loses its teeth. Iran was already under maximum U.S. sanctions. Its leadership had already been killed in the opening strikes. Its nuclear sites had been targeted. And yet its oil kept flowing to China. Its straight policy kept operating. Its drone attacks on Gulf infrastructure kept continuing. The U.S. bombed every military target on Karg Island, and 2 Iranian tankers were documented by satellite loading 2.7 million barrels of crude oil there the following Saturday. Karg Island's 55 crude oil storage tanks were intact. Iran had dispersed, hardened, and redundancy built its export infrastructure specifically to survive exactly the kind of strikes that occurred. And while all of this was happening in the physical world, something equally significant was happening in the diplomatic world that the mainstream coverage largely buried beneath the daily drone strike updates. Every country that depends on Hormuz oil began its own quiet negotiation with Tehran. Iran's ambassador to India confirmed that Tehran had allowed some Indian vessels to pass through.
I guess
2
that's all the
Indian
skin
LPG
tone
tankers
for
crossed
now.
the Strait of Hormuz safely and were en route to Indian ports by mid-March. India has secured the passage by releasing the 3 Iranian oil tankers it had been holding under sanctions pressure. A direct quid pro quo.
This boy ain't
Outside
painting.
the
Wait a
dollar
minute.
system,
Am I done with the
outside
skin
Western
tone? I
financial
think I'm done with the
institutions,
skin tone.
outside the diplomatic framework that the U.S. had spent 50 years constructing. A Pakistani-flagged tanker called Karachi sailed through the strait until receiving Iranian permission. The Turkish-flagged vessel broadcast its Muslim ownership and received safe passage. Iran was issuing geopolitical licenses to transit one of the world's most critical waterways. And the price of that license was not money, it was alignment. Align yourself against Washington's position. Accept Iranian terms, trade outside the dollar, and your ships pass. Refuse, and your vessels anchor indefinitely. This is not a military strategy, this is a new form of economic statecraft. And it is being executed in real time from a country that the United States just bombed with
hello,
a leadership
ma'am.
succession crisis.
I think I'm
Germany
done with the
immediately
skin
said
tone.
no military participation, not even for a Hormuz escort mission. Greece said no military operations. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said publicly, we will not be drawn into the wider war. France, which had opposed the initial strikes from the beginning, was in quiet talks with Iran about getting its own vessels through, not about joining a naval coalition. The countries Trump named in his call for a coalition were, one by one, going directly to Tehran and asking for passage terms. That is not a coalition forming. That is a queue of countries negotiating with the power that actually
Yeah, that
controls
should
the
look
strait.
good.
And it tells you something fundamental about the shift in geopolitical gravity that this conflict has produced. American military supremacy did not translate into control of the strait. Iranian geographic positioning, combined with a carefully designed insurance disruption strategy and a selective passage policy, denominated in Chinese
You gotta
yuan,
catch me when I'm
translated
laughing real
into
hard.
control of the strait.
The vein be
The
popping
U.S.
out.
Navy is the most powerful naval force ever assembled in human history. And it is
I'm
watching
getting
the
my
country
ass
just
kicked on the
bomb
video
and
game.
administer a toll gate that cannot charge through with aircraft carriers. Now here's the question that every investor, every policymaker, and
Let some
every
little
person watching
14-year-old
energy
be
bills
beating
should
my
be
ass on the game. And veins start thriving. That looks really good though. I like it. I think I like it a lot. I might, no, I guess not. It's something about this shadow right here. I'm not. I guess. Yeah, it is what it is. We're gonna clean this palette off and hop into some blue. Get some blues on my palette. I got the blues. I got the blues. I got the blues. Oh, 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 I got the blues. I forgot that, I forgot to put the, 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 I forgot to Hmm. All right. Somebody said that they were supposed to send me the flyers for my upcoming art show in this email, but just there's no attachment in the email, so I don't see the flyers. Anyway. I don't see no flyers in that email. What y'all talking about? All right. First, I'm gonna clean off the brushes, and then I'll clean off the palette. Oh man, a busy day at the plantation. Oh, I had a cool ass day at work. I went to a workforce development event for high school students. Yo, in our table, yeah, I swear to God, what we did was bring out the VR headset and just let the kids play on the VR. It's like, oh, you want to try welding? Here, check this out. Or you want to try HVAC? And we were just letting the kids run the VR simulations for 15 minutes at a time. And that was it. That was my whole day. That was my whole day. Oh yeah, it was super nice. It was super nice.
Yeah. And it don't let you move around. I feel like you're gonna get trapped.
Your boy's just chilling, man. That's our new guy, Valerio. So this was his first event. He did really good though. He's a people person. He's a good talker, and he's really knowledgeable with the equipment and stuff. Like most young people are.
I think this is my job. I'm actually getting paid for this is my job. I'm actually getting
I get paid to do this shit, man. So this was, you know, me with my early ass, first person in there setting up. Ain't nobody in here. I mean, yo, they gave us the big table. Oh, you ain't think I stepped to the DJ like, bro, check my shit out, man. You know, you ain't gotta play that shit now. You ain't gotta do it right now, but definitely in the future, you know, you need to run through some of my shit in the next couple of days. You might find a little hit you want to throw off at the next party, you know what I'm saying, bro? I might have a little hit in a little hit in gym you want to listen to. Got the Alienware in there sipping my motherfucking coffee off a salsa. Yeah, so I had a good day at work today. You know what? I got to do another event next week too. I got to go to another workforce seminar, but it's going to be at one of the local colleges for a couple hours in the morning. And that's a wrap after that. And then there's another event coming up in April that's going to be locally at our arena. They're going to have a big workforce development conference at our local arena, and it's going to be 2 days, and they're asking me to do that at least one of the days. And if I'm not mistaken, tomorrow, Friday, ain't it? Exchange jobs. No, ma'am. I don't like needles. Mm-mm. All right. Once again, I see very little changes I need to make in some of the tone in here. This piece is basically done. Her hair, this blue shirt and her hair are like the next two big things. After that, it's just wrap really. So I want to do some cerulean blue. Some cerulean blue and maybe some cobalt. I need to put all my skin tone colors back first. Why is blue fucked up? Cerulean blue. Take some of this. And maybe a little bit of cobalt here and there. You know, throw this here and there. Might be dark enough. All right. That might do it. What time? We at 5 o'clock. That's all good though. I started a little bit later than I wanted to. Anyway. Let's listen to our new mixtape. Or well, the newest album that we're working on. And go from there. If we run this album through one time, we probably will wrap it up after that. Maybe. Let's see where we're at. Right? All right, I might add a little bit of Prussian blue on there. Add a little bit of this Prussian blue. A little drop. I ain't trying to make it too dark. I just need a little drop. Should I saturate this whole shirt? Because I don't plan on painting the whole shirt, actually. Let's not. Or will I regret not doing that? I don't know, I like this little blazing thing lately. Let me try this. I'm a trained professional. Please don't try this at home, people. I'm not an artist, but as you can see, I play one on TV. Just like in most films where they have somebody painting, they use a professional to step in when they get a close-up of the hands. So this actually isn't actually my hand. This is a professional artist hand. All right, nice and glazed up like a ham. Gotta glaze it up. I'm gonna take this little brush. Zoom in on the picture. Gonna take this little brush. I might start with my highlights first for this one. Give me some nice bright white on my brush. I'm gonna exaggerate these highlights because they're not absolute white, but I like it. Is this dry? Nope. No, that ain't dry. You see how that make a big difference? I ain't doing nothing but draw a little white streak on the edge. And that shit be like pop, 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 pop. This is a little too bright. I'm adding a little bit. Add a little bit of blue in it. Got the blues. I got the blue. I got the blues. Is it done yet? No. But what else you got to do? Details. Get my little brush. Pull my little tiny brush out. It ain't the size of the brush. It's the flick of the wrist. It really matters. Never forget that. Some, when them big bad painters come busting up in there with a 3-inch wide brush, old big heavy, tell them, man, look, I don't need nothing that big to get the job done. You see this right here? This little brush? That's all I need. You're talking about OCD. You'll see OCD when these folds and this fabric start looking like some cotton, some Egyptian. That Egyptian cotton looking all soft. Look at that. Look at that. I love it. Where these little final little details in here. Watch out now. That boy on fire. Ooh-wee, look at that. Mm. I ain't never seen you paint do that before. Talking about OCD. It's supposed to be CDO. I even put that shit in alphabetical order. Grab my little buddy. Give me a little buddy. Show him what you do. Don't hurt him too bad. Just do it real soft now. You got people watching. Don't hurt him like that. God damn, that boy look like a magician. How that shit look magic. Somebody called me Snoop Dogg today at the event. Yo, this lady walked up to me. She was like, "Now this is probably be the wildest thing you've heard all day, but you look like Snoop Dogg." Hey, yo, she said, "I just texted my husband. I met Snoop Dogg. Can I take a picture with you to send to him?" I'm like, "Whatever, man. Should have charged you $5 for that shit." She's like, "Does anybody ever say you look like Snoop Dogg?" I'm like, all the fucking time, yo. All the time. All the time, ma'am. You look like Snoop Dogg. Personally, I still don't see it, but I don't know. Oh, I never started the music. Hold up now. I got too into the paint. I be balling in the paint. All right, let's run this album one time.
Trap House Entertainment.
Yeah. While you in the whole slip, I practice my gold step, no wreck. You get hung up like a coat check, no sweat. Y'all little niggas ain't no threat. Protest and get stretched out like a boat flex. Kick like Hotep, no prep. Stay ready, bench press, no stress. Cause the crown real heavy, gotta hold it steady. Being a monarch is deadly, one wrong move and they coming for your headpiece. The greatest of all time, the game is all mine. You walk in the thin line, hit it with a small mind. I design every rhyme, I'm still in my prime. Out the mud I had to climb, now you can't stop my shine. The greatest of all time. The game is all mine. You walk in the thin line and think with a small mind. I designed every rhyme. Still in my prime. Out the mud I had to climb. Now you can't stop my shine. G-O-A-T.
Who is this Afro man? Because I got high. Because I got high. Because I got high. La da 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 da. I was gonna go to class, but then I got high. I was gonna take that test and pass, but then I got high. And I flunked out of school, and I know why. Hey, hey, because I got high, because I got high, because I got high. La da 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 da. That's Afro Man. His most famous song ever. Probably, I've heard other songs from Afro Man, but that's the only song I know. I mean, when it first came out, way back, I think I was still in school when that shit came out. And one of the homies had the CD, and we listened to it. I listened to the whole album. I don't remember that shit, but everybody remembered the Because I Got High song. You know, he's super famous for that. Yeah, that was Afro Man. that was Afro Man. Yeah, he old now. He was that one hit wonder. And he always had like run-ins with the law and shit. So apparently he had some kind of run-in with the law. He felt like he was treated unjustly and his rights were violated. His family and his home was violated. And so he made a video mocking and harassing the police department and a particular officer in general. And she tried to sue him for defamation and slander and all kind of shit. And the courts just told her to shut up and stop crying, bitch. Shut up and stop crying. Stop harassing people. You motherfuckers won't make crazy songs about you. Just do your job. Be a good cop. Stop being a bitch. Now you want to cry and act like the victim after you done goddamn terrorize this man in his own home. He made a funny video and it hurts my feelings. Don't watch it then. Don't watch the video. I'm going to sue. No, you're not. Yeah, all morning. Like I scrolled on Facebook twice, and it was just like every other post was Afro Man won, Afro Man won. Everybody just happy as hell. Afro Man got over. Yo, don't be a bad cop. Motherfucker won't pick at you. Motherfucking dickhead. Motherfucking 5-0. Just do your job. We need you. I support cops. We need police officers because they crazy bad guys out here. But you just fuck with the bad guys. Y'all be getting overzealous and stepping outside your lanes and shit. And then with the biases and prejudices and racism and shit, man, just do your job, man. And motherfucker won't pick at you. I ain't even think when I first saw like a little clip of the video he made, I didn't think he was making fun of nobody. I just saw him getting chased by a thick ass white girl. I'm like, oh, he got the snow bunnies in the video. Okay, Afro Man. It's like, oh, he was making fun of a obese cop. Like, no, really? No, it is. I was like, oh damn, that's what he in trouble for the video. I didn't think the video was like supposed to depict a certain person. But yeah, apparently her feelings were hurt real bad, and she was big mad. She was big mad about that shit. All the way to court. She got lawyered up and everything. Psych. I hope you got one of them law firms that be like, and we don't get paid if you don't win. I hope y'all niggas win because your paycheck depends on it. I guess everybody broke even. I don't think Afro had a countersuit. I don't think Afro Man had a countersuit, but who knows? Now he might be able to sue for harassment or wherever he feel like he should get compensated for.
R.A.P. House Entertainment, ENT. We roll daily on Easy Street. You gon' pay me or kiss these feet and be in disbelief when you be missing teeth. I win so much, y'all missing sleep. I spin donuts, never miss a beat. Start making you niggas call me Mr. T. The is all time, the game is all mine. You walk in the thin line and think with a small mind. I design every rhyme, I'm still in my prime. Out the mud I had to climb, now you can't stop my shine. The greatest of all time, the game is all mine. You walk in the thin line and think with a small mind. I design every rhyme, I'm still in my prime. Out the mud I had to climb, now you can't stop my shine. I'm the goat like Cash Play, faster than a pin on a hand grenade. On a boat in Mandalay, we're here to see an Alizé. That's only they stripper name. Red bottom, blue chest, who you gonna screw next? I make one right, so you know I had a few left. When it hit your chest, gonna make you lose a few breath. G-O-A-T, watch me do it too. This is all time, the game is all mine. You walk in a thin line and think with a small mind. I designed every rhyme, still in my prime. Out the mud I had to climb, now you can't stop my shine. The greatest of all time, the game is all mine. You walk in a thin line and think with a small mind. I designed every rhyme, still in my prime. Out the mud I had to climb, now you can't stop my shine. G-O-A-T, G-O-A-T. G-O-A-T, G-O-A-T. Trap House Entertainment. Trap house, trap house, trap house. That trap house entertainment. If you think long, then you think wrong. Had a brain fart and a brain fart, but I stay up and I stay hard. I'm loud and sharp like a chainsaw, and I study all of the case log. So if they died, then it's they fault. If you want smoke, don't scream assault, because I can smoke all day long, kicking shit like Phalon. I'm a street fighter, I keep fire like a deep fry. Got meat flies that detail my desires. You get short circuit, it rewire. Using AI, not brainstorm. Jumping on these hits like a rainstorm, cause I upgrade and I change forms. I want everything that I came for. Don't get lost in the dark. Don't get lost in the dark. Don't get caught in your thoughts. Don't get caught in your thoughts. Don't keep passing it off. Don't keep passing it off. Don't get trapped in the fog. Don't get trapped in the fog. If you got this far, then you better walk you walk. Then you better walk you walk. Never step aside. Continue to talk your talk. Continue to talk your talk. Don't get lost in the dark. Don't get lost in the dark. Don't get caught in your thoughts. Don't get caught in your thoughts. Don't keep passing it off. Don't keep passing it off. Don't get trapped in the fog. Don't get trapped in the fog. If you got this far, then you better walk you walk. Then you better walk you walk. Never step aside. Continue to talk your talk. Continue to talk your talk. That brain fog will have your vision dizzy. You a lame dog. I heard you guzzle blizzard. Like State Farm, I'm forever busy. Gotta stay calm and don't get pissy. Like Miss Piggy, nigga, you's a puppet. You so sus. Need a new discussion. Using tools in public is a losing subject. My goons bring heat like a moving oven. So who you bluffing like we? I don't know. Cause it's hard to see you when them clouds low. So I stay high like an alto in that alcove. My dog's eating like Alpo to the alcove. Keep your mouth closed. Till you spoken to. I'm still tough. You are open shoes. And I'll smoke you cool with hella fumes. Like a backwood. Let's move. Don't get lost in the dark. Don't get lost in the dark. Don't get caught in your thoughts. Don't get caught in your thoughts. Don't keep passing it off. Don't keep passing it off. Don't get trapped in the fog. Don't get trapped in the fog. If you got this far, then you better walk you walk. Then you better walk you walk. Never step aside. Continue to talk your talk. Thinking shit all good until it ain't. You better watch your step when you're moving in the streets. Trap House Entertainment. If you know what I know, better keep your eyes closed. Back roads and them pine cones make it hard to find home. You know what I know, better keep your eyes closed. Back roads and them pine cones make it hard to find home. I can hear you talk about me, never sidestep. I just make you niggas walk around me, placing 5 bets. Heat like pirates, fuck around and pull that dog about me. Hanging from the balcony is what it's about to be. Make you sleep like counting sheep. Told you I'm the baddest, better beat it. Michael Jackson in my Heisenberg, Walter White or Michael Crazy. Anyway, I keep them matching street romance. Buried in the snow like an avalanche. Passing packs, smoking like I'm trying to kill my cataracts. If you know what I know, better keep your eyes closed. Back roads and the pine cones make it hard to find home. You know what I know, better keep your eyes closed. Back roads and the pine cones make it hard to find home. Niggas say they rapping, really dapping and show no action. My goons laughing, we ship the product and move the package. We do the knowledge and dollar stacking. My kidnapping grandson, mama holla, get the ransom. I'm handsome but still a villain. You thinking I still won't kill him, go figure. You hang around gold diggers and coke sniffers and other broke niggas. You broke nigga. The hood knows me for more than selling dope, nigga. Guess that's all she wrote. Let me dip before I poach niggas. If you know what I know, better keep your eyes closed. Back roads and them pine cones make it hard to find home. You know what I know, better keep your eyes closed. Back roads and them pine cones make it hard to find home.
You know what I know. You know what I know. You ain't seen shit. You guys know this.
Trap House Entertainment.
Just challenge myself with this one because the beat names, I was like, fuck it. The beat was named Sorrow, so I wrote a song about sorrow. Never borrow sorrow.
So if you ever come for me, and feelings where you wallow,
Hey,
misery loves company, but never borrow sorrow. So if you ever come for me, you are. Miscalculating, it's your fate. Bragging about with it, it's your case. Please don't lose and it's your hate. I can see the bitch all in your face. The look of disgrace, shame and the sorrow. The emptiness makes you feel hollow. Plus the pain still remains tomorrow. Soon another day, but that still follows. That's gonna be a tough pill to swallow. Watch it down when they hit the bottle. Drunk on race, so they hit the throttle. They crash out like they hit the lotto. A new bravado, a new Movado. A few more dollars, a new model. It's the high, your deeper losses. Your deepest darkest, they keep on watching motion. So I thought still spiral. Feeling so low, you can't take the arrow. Scared of the truth, and keep your eyes closed. Just don't add your woes to my low. It's emotion. So I thought still spiral. Feeling so low, you can't take the arrow. Scared of the truth, and keep your eyes closed. Just don't add your woes to my low. Rain clouds around my head. Inside I feel dead. My room is real red. Happiness, they killed it. Nothing is fulfilling. Really fucked your feelings. The darkness is chilling. The lights revealing. Misery will come to me. But never borrow sorrow. So if you ever come for me, yeah, the truth. You feeling where you are. Misery will come for me. And never borrow sorrow. So if you ever come for me, be feeling where you wallow.
Damn, do I need my stick? I gotta get my stick.
So if you ever come for me, be feeling where you wallow. If you ever come for me, feeling where you are.
Don't wallow in your feelings, but that's what you gonna be doing. Don't need enough.
Homie, don't see them coming, but I do. Them niggas is creeping behind you. Ever move that work, cause it ain't your turf. Niggas shouldn't have to remind you. Them bullets is flying now. That boy is crying now, but nobody hears us. Yeah, never cheat on me, she said. She was talking to a man with a heart full of anger. In the 357 Magnum in her hand. She put 2 in his chest, put 2 more in his head. She said if she didn't have him, then nobody can. She wouldn't let him go though. Didn't have the strength to hold on. Put the gun to her head and nigga, you killed my homeboy. No, I gotta avenge that black mask, and I know where you live at. I went through a lot to get you, so I know I won't miss you. I'm killing whoever with you, yeah. Whatever did that guides my life, dear Lord, don't let me die tonight. But if I shower before I wake, then I'll accept my fate. When I committed sin, my heart was in the right place. I did what I did to put food on my plate. So when they come for me, keep me safe. I see dead people coming out of their grave, wiping dirt off their shirt, still walking around the earth, watching their death recur, climbing out of their grave, wiping dirt off their shirt, still walking around the earth. I see dead people coming out of their grave, wiping dirt off their shirt, still walking around the earth. Watching their death recur, climbing out of their grave. Okay, okay. Yeah. Blow your whistle, blow your whistle. Yeah, 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 yeah. Blow your whistle. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Blow your whistle, yeah. Blow your whistle. My dogs too official. They come running when I whistle. Cause they wanna know the issue, so they try to pull the pistol. You can listen to them go on the monopill. When you see him with the Nina, man, I wouldn't wanna be a grip walk till they cripple. Tick tock, wrong with your hip hop. When they dribble to the right, blow the whistle. Grip walk till they cripple. Tick tock, wrong with your hip hop. When they dribble to the right, blow the whistle. Shorty, they were cute, nimble, super bad, but keep it simple. Ride it like an instrument on the sheet. Blow my pickle like a whistle. Sweet like Skittles, taste the rainbow. Gotta get a raincoat, the peep show is a freak show. Bubble like a T5, about to let my steam blow. Grip walk till they cripple, tick tock, wrong with your hip hop. When they dribble to the right, blow the whistle. Grip walk till they cripple, tick tock, wrong with your hip hop. When they dribble to the right, blow the whistle. Blow the whistle, whip the white like mayonnaise. No cut and no band-aid. Artificial man-made, fan-fiction back page. Golf nose, make a whistle, drop bombs in the missile. Drag through the thorns and thistles, popping problems like a pimple. Okay, 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 oh, yeah, yeah, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. Look, look, blow your whistle, blow your whistle. Yeah, blow your whistle. Yeah. Blow your whistle, yeah, blow your whistle. Grip walk till they cripple, tick tock, won't miss you, hip hop. When they dribble to the right, blow the whistle. The early bird catches the worm, the worm, the worm. Trap House Entertainment. 4 a.m. and any PA, and I don't need any delay. Record it and watch the replay, cause my time you cannot replay. 4 a.m. and any PA, and I don't need any delay. Record it and watch the replay, cause my time you cannot replay. My alarm is set for 4 a.m. I wake up early, hit the gym, burning off the cortisol every time I grip that steel. Sex appeal and keep it chill. I'm the shit like Pepto-Bismol. 5 a.m. it's time to head home, take a shower, throw that shit on, pack my lunch and check my pockets. 6 a.m. head to the office, prepping for my STEM class, cause we working on some awesome projects. Eyes wide and cold and logic. 10 a.m. I'm at the prison, teaching life skills like a father. I stay sharper than your barber. You don't hustle, they don't holler. I ain't got no time to waste. 24 hours a day. I'm always trying to be great. Seems you try to be late. I ain't got no time to waste. 24 hours a day. I'm always trying to be great. Seems you try to be late. 4 a.m. and it's my day off. Get up early for the good pay off. Brush my teeth, wash my face off. Get the bud and I take off. 5 a.m. I'm in the stew. I got my brunch, I got my brew. Start a live stream, I got my crew. You know what we about to do. I'm about to make them colors blend. Bump some music, let it spin. TBG, we get it in. Tiny Brush Gang for the win. Today, we back it up. I'm hungry, pancakes stacking up. Cold apple juices in my cup, and then my shorty back it up. 4 a.m. in any PA, and I don't need any delays. Record it and watch the replay, cause my time you cannot repay. 4 a.m. in any PA, and I don't need any delays. Record it and watch the replay, cause my time you cannot repay. I ain't got no time to waste. 24 hours a day. I'm always trying to be great. Seems you try to be late. I ain't got no time to waste. 24 hours a day. I'm always trying to be great. Seems you try to be late. No time to waste. Got no time to waste. Ain't got no time to waste. Trap House Entertainment. Left feet on red. Left feet on red. Left feet on red. Man, the evil empire keep pushing sins higher. Cause the leaders all liars too. Build their desire. They'll set the world fighting at a situation dire. I'll never call them sorry. They ain't nothing to do with my blood sucking vampires. Got us in a quagmire. Every time I lay a pirate tired of the sand side. Getting tight like they ain't trying to spread the news through the wire. Pedal pizza party. And we know who the buyers. Epstein and Jekyll Island. The files just keep piling. They need them to be silent. For carrots that keep smiling. They leaking it like a fountain. Evidence like a mountain. Hit dogs start howling. The truth keep it a dollar. Corruption is astounding. And it seems that we're surrounded by homicidal maniacs. All drunk on power. Elitist guy was walking the city. The final hours. I've been taking notes ever since. Ain't I down the tower. We came from the same start and built from the same parts. On the difference is we not cut from the same cloth. They try to lock us in the dark, lost like some cave up. But I'ma let the truth shine because I got a brave heart. We came from the same start and built from the same parts. On the difference.
All right, guys, we're right at the 2 hour mark. That's your trailer today. I think I'm gonna try to find a good spot to wrap this thing up.
Brave heart. Been talking about this shit for years because I got a brave heart. Our government is run by psychopaths and they got insane thoughts. Global domination, but the world's about to change course. Now we strike back and hit the bully with the same force. Behold the pale horse that cause terror and warmonger. More damage, more death, more bombs, more hunger, more crimes, genocide taking lives, and they plunder IDF and the Iron Dome. About to feel the thunder screams from a tomahawk.
How much is the Holocaust?
Consider the loss if it came from the ball. So you under y'all, always
The underdog.
operating under law. Let me check my battle losses. 1947, nigga knocking out rages. But the Bible pages say they are the synagogue of Satan. Then we're running out of pages with the leaders of the nation. So we better cut ties before our greatness is forsaken. Left feet on red. 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 Left feet on red.
I think that's one of my best songs. I'm just not just saying on this album, but like in general. I know I'll be doing a lot of writing. I have done a lot of writing, but that's a good song. It's not like the lyric. Okay, those probably not the best song, but probably some of the best lyrics. I don't know. I like the words. I like what it's saying in that song. Now, as far as the beat, and the arrangements and all that shit. Now that might not, be the best or everybody's favorite, but those lyrics hit super fucking hard. Sometimes music can be about the vibe, and sometimes it's about the actual lyrics and the message. That don't look half bad, you know what I'm saying? It don't look too shabby, even if I say so myself. And I just did. What's going on? Okay. And I just did. So we'll do that. Take that off. Turn that off. All right. All right. Damn, man, this paint is starting to look like something. I don't know what, but it's looking like something. I'm saying it's starting to look like something over here. Oh, all right. We got the 2 hour mark. Listen to the new album or the current set of songs that we're working on. So now, I think I may go try to find some more clips and stuff to finish this video. I really want to get that done. I really want to get this video done. All right. Damn, that's a fine looking couple. They think say some little fine shit. Look at him. That nigga ain't even that funny. I know him. I know that motherfucker. You not that funny. All right. Excuse me. Turn the heaters off because our little warm spell is fucking done and it's back being cold as shit. So I had to let the studio warm up a little bit too. All right, guys, I think that is everything. The brushes are clean, speaker off, heaters off, lights are out. And we made really, really good progress. I'm hoping to finish this piece by this weekend. I don't see why I couldn't finish it between tomorrow evening and if I hit it hard Saturday, we might be working on something else on Sunday, honestly. So our next project is a underpainting. Underpainting for our next Whisper series, actually. So then after that, I really need to start hitting people up about modeling because what is it? March, April, May, June. Yeah, 3 more months until the middle of the year, and I have 2 more paintings that I'll work on. Like I said, that probably carried me until the middle of the year, but I need stuff to work on for the rest of the year and throughout the cold months. So as soon as life comes back and spring and flowers and greenery is out and about, I definitely got to get out and do some more photo shoots, come up with some more scenes so we can have some stuff to work on for the second part of the year. I want to say thank you to everybody in attendance and everybody who just popped in and check us out for a little while this evening doing this paint session, working on the skin tones. We actually got done with that. So yeah, appreciate the company and the conversation, the comments and compliments. And we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace. We're out of here.